Because if you are somebody who have gone through the scriptures, you will agree with me that most of the things God did in the scriptures, he did it at his time, not at the time of those who were expecting it, but at his time. This principle is everlasting when it comes to God. This principle is everlasting. And as a Christian, if you don't understand this principle, I'm telling you, you're going to have problem with God, even in your faith. Why? Because you will begin to see God in the context of your problem, in the context of your challenges. Whereas God doesn't see things that way. God sees things in the context of his dwelling, in the context of his timing. That's how God sees things. So when the Bible speaks of God's time, or like in 1 Peter 5, 6 say, humble yourself, and God will lift you up in due time. That due time also speaks of God's time. When God speaks of God's time, he's speaking of what God will do when he is ready to get that thing done. What God will do when he's ready to get that thing done. Not when you are ready, when he is ready. There are two different issues here. You and him are not in the same time. God created time, so he doesn't dwell in time. Are you getting me? God created time, so he doesn't dwell in time. You are the one who is dwelling in time. Aberration about understanding how God operates. You're going to have that issue. It's not wrong. It can be there. That's why we're teaching you, for you to understand. Some of us have experienced this with God. I have seen that it is not about my timing. It's about his timing. So you can cry to God. You can cry to God and cry to God. But I want you to know, God is not going to respond because you are crying. Are you getting it? But the cry is good, because in your cry is where you give God information of how you feel about the predicaments. Because in his response, he's going to respond in a way to take care of those issues you cried about. So your crying is good. Your crying brings up to him what he needs to do for you when the time comes. But the cry is not going to make God to drop everything he's doing. Hey, my daughter is crying, let me rush. And no, that is most times that's how some of us think. The crying is like you are bringing a petition. You are telling him what they are going through, what they are doing to you. He's collecting it. Whatever you are saying, he's accepting your petition. He leaves it on his table. He leaves it in his presence. He has a time. He has programmed to bring that answer. That time is not within your own control. It is within his own. It is his jurisdiction. Let me use that word. It is what he's reaching. He's the one that decides. He told Abraham, okay, now we're going to covenant. Let me tell you something more that I have not told you. As Abraham cut the animals into two, that was a practice that was done in the medieval world then. That was the way people got into covenant with somebody. So God borrowed their way, because he has to borrow the way they do it then, so that Abraham will be convinced that what I'm telling you is true. Are you getting it? So God borrowed the way they do it there as a way to go into covenant with Abraham. So he didn't bring his own method. He asked Abraham, okay, this is what you could do. You know about this thing. You know your community, within the environment you stay, the nations you stay, this is how they go into covenant. Okay, go cut the animals. I'm going to go into covenant with you. Let me do the same thing to tell you that I will never fail you, because this is the only thing that can make people believe in somebody. Because when you do such a thing, they believe when you do it. You are saying, as these animals were cut into two, if I fail to bring my own back in, I will die like them. Are you getting it? That's why the animals are cut into two. And Abraham did all that. But God knew Abraham is a man. He didn't tell Abraham that one. He knew Abraham is a man. Abraham is not qualified to go into covenant with God. He's not qualified. He don't have what it takes to go to covenant with God. So what God knew, that through his descendants, he's going to raise somebody who has what it takes to go into covenant with him. So he initiated the process with Abraham. And while Abraham was waiting for God to come, he fell into deep sleep, showing that he's not the one. God went into that covenant himself. He bound the covenants on himself. Hallelujah. He did not get Abraham involved. Because Abraham was sleeping while everything was happening. But when God was doing that, God began to explain to Abraham more about what is going to happen. Because now I'm doing the covenant, I want to let him know the details of what's going to happen. He told him, I'll bless you and all that. But when he was saying I'll bless you, there's something that's very ironic there. He said, I will bless you, but your children will be slaves. Wow. I will bless you, but your children will be slaves. That's why one day I preached a message that poverty or wealth doesn't mean that you are blessed or you're cursed. Poverty is neither a curse or a blessing. It depends on your spiritual profile. Wealth is neither a blessing or a curse. It depends on your spiritual profile. Because some people are wealthy but they are cursed. And some people are poor but they are blessed. Here is a God, the owner of the world, blessing a friend and telling him, I bless you, but your children will be slaves. So when the people of Israel were slaves, they were still blessed even though they were whipping them. They were still blessed even though they were carrying straws, making clothes, serving idolatrous people. They were still blessed even though when they were walking like an elephant and eating like an ant. Their economic situation, their circumstances do not guarantee that they are cursed people. What today we believe, and most people are preaching, that when you're cursed, you're blessed. When you're poor, you're cursed. It's wrong. Somebody can be poor, but he's a blessed person. The poverty does not speak of the curse in his life. It speaks of a blessing too. And that's another day. We'll talk about that later day. But what I want you to understand, when the time came, God remembered his people. After how many years? 460 years. Well, what he told Abraham was 400 years. But when it happened 460 years. Going to read the Bible. Huh? It took more than what he told his friend Abraham. God had their cries for 100 years. He saw how they were raping their daughters, taking their wives from them by force because they're slaves, forcing them to work so hard and take little, beating them when they're working. Those things were producing cries. On a bare body, you're gonna cry, huh? God had those cries, but he did not rush to come and solve the problem because they were crying. That's what we need to get at. He did not rush to come and solve the problem. He has to wait for his time. When his time came, he began to do something. And that's what I want us to understand, the phenomenon that happens when it comes to God's time. What God is going to respond to your predicaments in his time, not in your time. And that is time, most times, is going to be favorable to you if you are faithful in Christ. Because one thing about God is that he doesn't fail his promise. When his promise comes, and if he promises to do something for you, and that time comes, and you are not faithful, you will see that thing will come. Like the people of Israel is taking it. You will see that thing he promised will come. He's not going to withhold it. Most times he doesn't withhold it. I can't put God in the wrong box. But he's not going to withhold it because you are not faithful. He will bring it, but your unfaithfulness will destroy it. Are you getting it now? He will make it happen. He will fulfill his bargain, his part. But it's not up to you to make that blessing become fruitful if you remain faithful to him. It happens. Then I'm telling you, your preparation is very vital. Your faithfulness is very vital to make, when that time comes, you connect to his time fruitfully. Because a lot of people today have experienced God's time in their life and they messed it up. So when we talk of God's time, people think that God's time has to do only, it's only classified. It's only classified for only Christians. You see, as a God's time is God's time. It's for everything He created. For what I say? For everything He created. He has a time to bring judgment. He has a time to endure. He has a time to wait on you. He has a time to take your nonsense. If you see it that way. Eh? He has a time to try to correct you. But there's also a time He's not interested in correcting you again. He's not interested in punishing you. He has a time to show mercy. He has a time to bring judgment. And I'm telling you, if you're walking with God and you want to walk in your own time, you're going to fumble. You're going to stumble drastically big time. You must learn to be sensitive to His timing. Because you're not the one who created heaven and earth. You're not the one that created heaven and earth. He's the one that created it. So He knows how it operates. Bishop Kings. Ahab set a man free, a king free, that God determined should die. God punished him for that. Huh? I'm determined to kill. You set him free. It's not your head for his head. Because that time is not the time for mercy. Are you getting it? That time is not the time for what? Mercy. So if you are His servant, as a king of Israel, you are His servant. You should not do things the way you want. You should do things the way He wants. So when Ahab was trying to show mercy on a king that God had determined that this is the time for this man to die, God punishes him. That's the time God said, who will help me? Who will help me entice Ahab to go to war so that he will meet his death there? I told him, your head for your head. He said, for your head. Who will entice Ahab to go to war so that he will meet his death here? I'm tired of this guy. He's trying to do things his own time. I want him to do this at my time, not his time. So you must understand that God's time will be favorable to you. It's going to locate you. Whether you are faithful or not, it's going to locate you. But one thing about it is that when you are unfaithful, it locates you. You will mess it up. With your own hands, you're going to mess it up. That time will come. God will not do it because you are faithful, not do it. He will do it. When that time comes, if you are not faithful, if you are not prepared with your own hands, the time will become, how will I get it? It become a curse on you. When His time comes, that time you pray that it never came, because it's going to bring more problem to you more than blessing. Why did John the Baptist came? It's to prepare them for the time. Hallelujah. The time of the salvation of Israel has come. The time his son is already on the ground. John the Baptist came to prepare them because God knew they have to be ready for the time before the time meets them. If they meet my time unprepared, it will be a case of them. And we saw it when Jesus was going to the Golgotha. And the women were crying, he said, don't cry for me, cry for your children. Don't cry for me. What will happen to them? Because God's time came. And they were not able to do what? To receive it. What is the problem? They were unfaithful. That's why God encourages most time. I tell you that the waiting time is the what? It's the learning time. The waiting time is the what? The learning time. Don't waste it in crying and wallowing in pity. Don't waste it. Make your mind productive in observation. In what? Observation. Try to study the way God is helping you to go through your difficulties while you are waiting for Him. Spend no time there, because those things are the things you need when the time comes. It's going to make you be productive in His time. I believe why Joshua and Caleb were different, because when they were suffering in Israel, they were also learning from their pain. Hallelujah. Caleb, that God said these ones have different spirits.